Okay, guys, now it's time to do the reading of the section, and that means our goals are probably a bit simpler because we've already gone through identifying what key terms we need to know, etc. And right now, we're just looking at forming more nuanced and elaborate understandings of the arguments that are put forward by Aristotle. So, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to elaborate on the arguments and contentions provided in the first two chapters while reading Aristotle's text. So the first two chapters while reading Aristotle's text. That means we're going to draw on prior knowledge we gained from watching the summary, and we're going to form nuanced understandings of his rationale for inquiry, like why is he inquiring into the good life and what is the good. So I would like you to draw a picture of an umbrella after you've scored yourself on these two goals. That is, the success criteria are always small goals that help us achieve the big goal. So that means basically draw a picture of an umbrella afterwards, because remember what we said about political science. Political science is the umbrella term for all the other esteemed sciences that allow us to pursue the good for society, right? And then that will be it. We can move on to the reading. Let's start reading. Now, what's probably surprising is we've just read Gorgias. And because we've just read Gorgias, we're used to these massive slabs of text. And remember, these texts that we're going to read now are actually notes taken from lectures. They're highly condensed, and they can be a bit more difficult to understand because they are highly condensed. It's like we're trying to pack everything up into one really short piece of writing. And consequently, that means sometimes there are holes there in the logic. Things don't flow as easily, or the words are just too abstract, and the concepts aren't really elaborated on enough. Okay, let's go. All right. Subject of inquiry. All human activities aim at some good. Some goods are subordinate to others. You should be able to notice just from reading that the language is much more scientific and much more systematic when compared to the dialogues. So we are going to read something which is much more systematic in erecting or creating like a scaffold of logic that can therefore be used. That's a very Aristotle way to think, okay? Here we go. Every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and choice, is thought to aim at some good. And for this reason, the good has rightly been declared to be that which all things aim. So what he's saying is that every art, every inquiry, every action and choice mainly tries to achieve some kind of good. We do it for that particular reason. So therefore, the good is something which we aim for. That's the logic. Okay? We're aiming for some good, so therefore the good must be the thing at which all things aim for. Okay? Take a note. And here he starts to realize that that's a very vague answer, so we need to kind of explore it a bit further. But a certain difference is found among ends or aims. Okay, guys? Some are activities, others are products apart from the activities that produce them. So some ends are activities and things in themselves, and others are products that are separate from activities that produce them. Where there are ends apart from actions, it is the nature of the products to be better than the activities. So automatically, to me, this is confusing language, right? And it's because it's just so abstract. But a certain difference is found among ends. Some are activities, so some are things that we do, and these are what we would call the instrumental aims, and others are the products apart from the activities that produce them. So these products that have nothing to do with just the activity are the activities that these products are the things that have an end in and of themselves, I would assume, right? Where there are ends, where there are ends apart from the actions, it is the nature of the products to be better than themselves. So when the ends are apart from the actions, so when we look at the goal or the aim being separate from what the action achieves, it is the nature of the product to be better than the activities. Now, as there are many actions, arts, and sciences, their ends also are many. So saying there are many diverse goals. The ends of the medical art is health. That of shipbuilding is a vessel. That of strategy is victory. That of economics is wealth. But where such arts fall under a single capacity, such as bridle making, and the other arts concerned with the equipment of horses fall under the art of riding, and this and every other military action under strategy. In the same way, other arts fall under others. In all of these ends of the master arts are to be preferred to the subordinate ends. Okay, I think I was trying to overread this section here, but I think this is when he's talking about ends here, he's talking about goals, and this is where he's getting really specific. Okay, he's saying, like the bridle maker is subordinate to the art of riding, and riding is subordinate to the art of military campaigns, you can easily see that some goals are subordinate to others, and ones have final ends. So if I were you, I'd take some notes about that. Maybe use the bridle making, horse riding, and infantry hierarchy to provide some kind of example about how ends are subordinate to other ends. Or to use the language used in the summaries, some aims are subordinate to other aims. And you can pretty much see here how he's coming up with an argument for the final aim, the final goal is the good. Now, I'm still confused about what he means by saying that there are ends that are separate from their activities, and then there are just ends that are in the activities themselves. But I think that really still is a bit of an allusion, not illusion, allusion to the idea that ends that are ends in and of themselves would be the most superior, the better, because happiness would be an end in itself, which is separate from the actual activity of trying to achieve it. That's what I think he's saying. Okay, so I may have overread this part here a bit too much, but I think that we can start seeing the subordinate relationship really clearly in his language here. Okay. All right. So here we go. In all of these ends of the master arts are preferred to all the subordinate ends, for it is the sake of the former that the latter are pursued. So here he's really saying the subordinate ends are pursued in order to pursue the major dominant end, okay? And it makes no difference whether these activities themselves are the ends of the actions or something else apart from the activities, as in the case of the sciences just mentioned. So what he's saying here is it makes no difference with the activities that you're trying to achieve are the ends of the actions, like, or some other part of the activities. A bit confusing for me there. All right. The science of the human good is politics. So here we know that we're going to get an outline as to why political sciences matter so much. If then there is some end of things that we do, right, which we desire for its own sake, everything else being desired for the sake of this. And if we do not choose everything for the sake of something else, for at that rate the process would go on into infinity, so that our desire would be empty and vain. Clearly this must be the good and the chief good. Okay, so this is really clear. All right. What's basically being said here is that if we believe that there are some ends which just finish and are not subordinate, they are the final ends that we aim for, the dominant of dominant ends. And if we acknowledge that there are ends that we just achieve for their own sake, then there must be one final thing that everything else is subordinate to, and we're going to call that the chief good. Take a note. From there, basically we say, will not the knowledge of it then have a great influence on life? And this is where he provides his rationale through a rhetorical question. What he's saying is, if I know what the chief good is, then I know how to live a good life. Take a note. If so, we must try in outline at least to determine what it is and which of the sciences or capacities it is the object. So in other words, we must find out, therefore, what sciences or what practices are going to allow us to inquire into the nature of this chief good. Take a note. From then, we follow that, all right? It would seem to belong to the most authoritative art and that which is the most truly the master of arts. So he's talking about the ultimate art, the ultimate science, the ultimate thing we should pursue, and that is politics. All right, and politics appears to be of this nature, for it is this that ordains which of the sciences should be studied. Now, if you think about it, if we studied politics, we'd therefore be making decisions about how we spent our life and what we tried to achieve socially together. So the art of understanding politics would therefore allow us then to ask other questions like what sciences should be studied in order to pursue the good, because ultimately that's a political question. Take a note. And which class of the citizens should learn and up to what point they should learn them. Again, more political questions because we're deciding about how society should function in order to achieve the good life and what areas of knowledge should be pursued in order to achieve it. Take a note. So it should be really clear that political science is the top science because it allows us to decide how we use the other sciences which can be used to pursue the good. And we see the most highly esteemed of capacities to fall under this. For example, strategy, economics, rhetoric. Now, since politics uses the rest of the sciences, and since again it legislates as to what we are to do and what we are to abstain from, the end of this science must include those of the others, so that this end must be of the human good. So what he's saying here is that because politics uses all the other sciences, it must in itself be a science that takes on board the aims of all these subordinate sciences that are mentioned here. Take a note. All these subordinate sciences are like subordinate activities mentioned above. And perhaps what was being alluded to is, well, no, I think what he's definitely saying is that the the aims of these sciences are subordinate to the chief aim of political science, which is the chief good of society. Okay, so therefore we know that political science is the superior science because it must aim at the human good. That's its total and utter aim, because all the other aims of the other sciences would be subordinate to it, because all the other sciences are subordinate to it. For even if the end is the same for a single man and for a state, that of that state seems at all events something greater and more complete, whether to attain or to preserve. Though it is worthwhile to attain and merely aim for one man, it is finer and more godlike to attain it for a nation or city-states. So what he's basically saying is, sure, we could use these sciences to achieve the common good, or the chief good, sorry, for one man, but it is much more of a glorious and amazing thing to achieve the chief good for a society or for a city-state. These then are the ends at which our inquiry aims, since it is the political science in one sense of that term. So what he's basically saying is political science allows us to achieve all the subordinate ends and to achieve it for society, not just the one individual. And that's where we finish. If you ask me, it was just the activities references here, which are a bit confusing. In this section, we can clearly see that some ends are subordinate to others, and therefore some activities are subordinate to others because they achieve subordinate ends. And then we can see that when we apply that logically, the chief practice is therefore political science because it basically covers all the other sciences or inquiries into what the good life is. As I can see here in this section here and in this section here, he basically argues the point is to inquire into the nature of the chief good and how to live and how to make decisions based on the chief good. Because if we do that, then we're more likely to live a happy life. That's the rationale for the inquiry. And then, there's this basic elaboration on the nature of political sciences being an umbrella science. To practice politics means you have to discuss strategy, economics, rhetoric, you even have to discuss ethics. Lots of other areas of science and art come under politics. And therefore they inform the decisions you make about society. They inform which inquiries you'd make further. They inform who you would make these decisions for. They inform your policies and how the chief good is achieved. So therefore, political science is the chief good. I think we have achieved our goals. I think we have drawn upon prior knowledge. If you didn't watch the summary, a lot of things I would have talked about would have been very confusing to you. And I think there's a lot of nuance being brought out through the way that I explain those two chapters. Can you just score yourself on these two, and then you should be done? Cheers.